in I forgot where it was, somewhere in Massachusetts, but there's a there's a church who puts out that has a nativity scene every year, which that shouldn't surprise most people since a lot of churches put out nativity scenes this time of year. But this one is unique in that they tend to dress it up with political messaging. And this year it was all immigration themed, and so they put in the nativity scene they put the baby Jesus inside of a cage, and then where the wise men are, they separate it with like this metal grating, and then they hang a sign that says "This way to deportations." And so, Robert has some very strong feelings about this. So, I teed it up for you. Swing away.
Yeah. So here's the first of all the biggest issue I have with everything. Nothing about the
Can you
story.
tilt your phone up a little? You're there. Yeah.
Sorry about that. I'm trying to charge my phone. So
yeah. Anyways.
Yeah, so the biggest problem I have, for one, is nothing in the story of the birth of Jesus in that time has anything to do with any of that. There was no immigration whatever thing going on with.
But Robert, Jesus was a refugee.
No, he wasn't.
Jesus, Mary and Joseph and Jesus escaped Herod's decree of the first of killing off babies all the way up to 1 years old, and fled to Egypt. So technically, they're refugees, were they not?
In a sense, yes, but they were also when it came time to do the census, they were heading back to take part of the census. So not really much of a refugee if you really think about it.
I know. I was just trying to play the other side so you don't sound as crazy or unhinged.
Yeah. But no, it's like if they were real refugees, sure they spent a short time in other places, but when it came time to take part of the census that was going on in the Roman Empire at the time, they went and did it. So, it's,
Again, I guess that's true then, because they didn't remain in Egypt, because after the terror or the menace of the order, cast down by Herod was lifted, they went back to Nazareth.
Yeah, that's so. Sure, they may have been, refugee. I hate to use that term, but like maybe for a short time they escaped a troubling decree,
mm-hmm.
which I'm sure it wasn't just them. I'm sure it was quite a few families that did that, because it was a decree to kill all, boys of like a certain age, so that just to potentially get rid of Jesus. So there was a lot of kids that probably died during that
mm-hmm.
time that we don't hear about.
Right.
So there's that. So to me, the story of Jesus, of that time in Jesus's life, never have nothing to do with it. At the very least, like it's its own thing. It has nothing to do with the situation going on in at our time with immigration crisis.
Mm-hmm.
For one, because nothing that that Jesus did was breaking the law. for one, it's like we're trying to enforce our laws and people don't want to do that, and okay, so there's that. But here's the thing that also bugs me about this whole situation is that, to me, I'm not saying that you can't have political ideologies or um, even or bad theology or whatever, but I have a hard time when because here's the thing, for me, church is one of those things, is a time for us to come together as believers to we worship together, we have fellowship together, we share meals together, we study the Bible together. These are all supposed to be unifying elements. That's kind of the whole point of church, is to come away from the things of the world, the dangers of the world, and have a place where we can congregate together in peace and unity. And sure, there's always going to be strife here and there, but I have a hard time when leaders of a church pull stunts like this to kind of create a political message, or to make things about race or whatever, because to me that defeats the purpose of what church is. Now, I'm not saying that like we
Or
should
to even virtue signal.
Right, because let's be honest, those people don't give two fucks about the people on the border. Because instead of creating this kind of display, it's like, okay, well, why don't we go down to the border and let's do something, whether it be handing out water, or doing something of like trying to help out the poor, or or at the very least, like being able to, like, hey, why don't we there's a lot of craziness going on down there, why don't we pray for people that are going through this, both on both sides. Let's and but it isn't any of that. Like, it's nothing that was done there accomplishes anything. And I'm one where I don't think that stuff like this belongs in church. I don't, because I think I've mentioned before where there was something going on with my church, and obviously, like, I'm white, but I go to a Korean church just like you do, and there was something during a message or something that we were doing, and it was kind of a race thing, and it's like, oh well, hey, white people. And like, for me, like, I personally don't care when people bash white people, that's, but like when it's an official like church event, and it's like, well, that's actually not, I don't find it very appropriate, because that's not the point. Like, we come together, like, we are no the Bible states that we're no longer Jew or Greek, male or female. We are now of the body of Christ. That's what unifies us. It doesn't matter what our skin color is. It doesn't matter what background we come from. It doesn't matter our bloodline, because now we are adopted into the family of Christ. That's what's important. And this whole stunt that this Catholic Church pulled off, which I'm not going to get into.
Yes, let's not get into your beef with the Catholics.
But this is, first of all, it accomplishes nothing, and to me, I think it perverts the story of Christ, the beautiful show of God's providence through this time, and it just and I think it also falsely represents what's actually happening down at the border, and why it's alienating a whole another group of people who are just wanting our laws to be enforced, and we kind of make it look like, it's those white people. They don't care about immigrants and all this. Like, no. We don't mind immigration. That's we've all at some point had our families immigrate to this country. That's not a problem. The problem is that we want people to do it the right way, and we also want them to assimilate to the American idea, the American way and creed that we all follow. And a lot of these people don't want to do that. They don't care about that. That's shown by, like, if they really cared about, if they really, it's like, I really want to be an American. Okay, why? And I'm not saying that you shouldn't, fly care about your old country or your heritage, but I wouldn't be displaying like the country that you're fleeing from that you supposedly hate as you're trying to come into this country. It doesn't make any sense. But it's not. This is just virtue signaling at its worst. It accomplishes nothing, and it perverts a whole bunch of. It perverts the truth, and that's really the thing that bothers me the most.
Well, if this was a one-off from this guy, would you be willing more to overlook this transgression?
No, not really.
No.
Because see, the thing is, here's why I say no to that. Because if this was like a layperson, just someone that was like, happened to be put in charge of, like, decorating the church for Christmas, it's like, okay, that's fine. Like, we'll never have that person do that again. But this is church leadership that decided upon doing this. That's where I have a huge problem, because they know better.
Well,
or they should know
well,
better.
yeah, well, you know where I'm going to go with this, but the reason why I posed this question was really more for the sake of the audience, because they might not know. But this particular priest, he has a established pattern of behavior, and so the year before, last year, when they had the nativity scene up, they in on the back wall of the manger, there was a list of cities in America, and then also numbers by it, and it just so happened to be the cities with all the mass shootings that year.
Yeah.
And so so like the priest who put this thing, the nativity scene up with baby Jesus in a cage, and the wise men being separated by a fence, with the sign that said a sign that read like deportations that way, and an arrow pointing for the supposed for like the wise men to follow, is not something that this priest did just this one time, but this priest is displaying a pattern of behavior that, and it's interesting enough that another interesting thing about it is that usually they have like a message of like peace on earth, like I think that's pretty typical of all nativity scenes, but in their nativity scene, I believe it was this year. I'm not sure if it was the year before, but it read "peace on earth," but with a question mark. So kind of asking like a question. It's like peace on earth.
It's that's, I don't know. Everything about it just kind of bugs me. It's I think it also takes away from I think the point of it's not telling the story of Jesus, which is what, the whole goal of, holidays like this is to share the gospel, and to to redeem, to redeem sinners, to show that, like, to share the stories, like, God came down on this earth and came here to redeem us. We should be. This is a time to be penitent and to think about our misdeeds during the year, and then ultimately, it's when it comes to Christmas time, it's a time to celebrate. It's like, our Redeemer is here. This is good. This is a great thing, and this does not accomplish that whatsoever.
Right, because I think, especially during this time of year, divisive subjects or topics such as immigration, or even gun control, should really not be part of the narrative of Christmas.
Right, and like you said,
because again,
and
it's divisive, and it detracts away from the message of unification that Jesus brings.
Right, that's something that, to me, that is one of the biggest issues another big issue that I have, because issues like this, I'm not saying that, like, don't have thoughts or feelings about these issues. I mean, they're important, don't get me wrong. The stuff that we talk about all the time is important. Obviously we lean to a certain side, but to those on the other side of the aisle, it's important to them to some degree. And I'm not saying don't care about, like, these topics, but the whole point of church is to be unified within the body of believers, and shit like this causes division, and that's one of the things that is that Paul rails against that in a lot of his letters to the different churches. Like, especially the Corinthians, they were Corinthians and Galatians, where it's like they were buying into things or doing things that caused great division within the church, and it's like, you're acting foolishly. It's like, stop it. and this would be one of those things where you're perverting part of the gospel story, and you're creating division while doing it. And I think that's I have a huge problem with that. Yeah, because a lot of times, this is the time of year, people think it's like, oh, you know what, maybe I should start going back to church again. But if I was a conservative Catholic, I'd be like, you know what, and that was the only church that was close by me, and it's like, well, maybe I should go. And then you see something like that, it's like, well, fuck that, no.
Right.
And now you have pushed away people that may have been open to listening to the gospel, and you've kind of closed the door.